Welcome to the podcast. Today we're going to be talking about a concept that perhaps may be a little bit new, something you haven't considered before, probably something you've seen, but maybe didn't even recognize. No dribble free throws. So this started many years ago when I was at the park with my oldest son, and I just wanted to focus on him getting reps. Just getting reps, as many reps as possible. Shooting, snapping his wrist, feet shoulder width apart, bending his knees properly, shooting one motion, not getting stuck on his forehead, just making sure it's a one motion shot. And we wanted to work on shooting. We didn't want to work on dribbling. We didn't want to work on rebounding. We were there for a reason. We wanted to work on shooting. So we're working on shooting. He's at the free throw line. And I notice and it's funny, but I noticed that he was doing a bunch of different crazy stuff. And there's stuff that he's a kid. He was just imitating what he saw on TV. So he's doing this weird little routine and then spinning the ball. And then it reminded me of way back in the day. There was a player named Harold Miner. Look him up. Played for USC, University of Southern California. Harold Miner. He had a pretty interesting free throw routine too, where he moved the ball around his back. Like literally the referee gave him the ball, did his thing, moved the ball around his back, and then he shot his shot. So every player has their own routine, and that's something that happens over time. And the key word there is time. That's something that's developed over time, and it makes them feel comfortable. It makes them feel at peace. It makes them feel like they've done it 1,000 or 1,000,000 times, and they have. But when you're trying to get as many shooting reps as possible, I want you to key in on that word time. So we're at the park working on his shot, and as I'm passing him the ball, I notice that he's taking extra time before he gets this shot up because he's imitating what he saw and what he remembered and what he thought looked cool, just like a kid would imitate Batman or Superman or whatever, right? He's taking extra time and extra dribbles and doing extra stuff with the ball and then shooting shots. So we worked on shooting the ball without dribbling. So I'd throw him a bounce pass, just like referees do, like referees should. I threw him a bounce pass, he'd shoot, I'd get the rebound, repeat over and over and over. And then when we started our youth academy, we did the same thing. We made it a rule. We made it a rule for all kids. Every time you get fouled, every time you get sent to the free throw line, every time the referee blows the whistle and you get two shots, you're not allowed to dribble. It was amazing at first to see how hard this was for the older kids to not do their routine, basically, to not do their 2, 4, 6 dribble, spin the ball routine. It was amazing how hard it was for the older kids to break what was their normal habit, to break their normal routine. For the young players who obviously had way less time invested in their quote unquote routines, they were able to pick it up immediately. And some of the parents even questioned it at first. Not in a bad way, not rude, but they'd find their way over to me or one of the coaches in a game and ask us, what's the deal with not letting my son or daughter dribble? We practice all the time and that's what they're used to doing. And they've done this for a long time. And, his daughter's like 9 or something like that. So it's not like there's like 20 years of experience or 10 years of experience. It's something they've done. It's something he or she was used to. And it was a new habit. So we would answer those questions. And the keys to this is that it saves time. There's that keyword time. It saves time when you're practicing by not wasting time. So by utilizing as much time as possible for shooting, you're saving time by being able to get more shots because you're not dribbling in between. You're not doing some type of routine. You're not spinning the ball. You're not pausing. You're not thinking. You're not doing all kinds of stuff in between the shot. You're shooting, you get the ball, you repeat, you shoot. So it's way more efficient. And that means you get more shots. So next time you take your son or daughter to the park or the YMCA or the playground or before or after practice or wherever you go to get extra shots, next time you take them to shoot, use your phone, use your iWatch or whatever it's called, right? Whatever you use to time them and see how long it takes to take 20 free throws with their normal routine, whatever their routine is. And then time them to take 20 free throws where they're not allowed to dribble. Which one is faster? Simple math question, obvious answer, but which one's faster? And the key to this is not trying to speed them up. It's not trying to go as fast as you possibly can. You're not trying to be a NASCAR driver with your free throws. You're not trying to rush them. You're not throwing it to them and say, shoot. It's not that. You're not trying to rush them. But just through the course of a practice session, if you can get 20 or 30, if you can get around 20 free throws per minute by not dribbling compared to 5 or 6 free throws a minute while going through a routine in between every single shot, how can you maximize your time? By not dribbling. Simple. So if you consider free throws a chance to work on ball handling, then this definitely isn't for you. And it's definitely not for your son or daughter But free throws are about developing a routine, about developing habits, about making sure that the shooter is able to focus on their shot. And the more shots you get, again, repetition, proper repetition. Should they bend their knees? Yes. Should their feet be shoulder width apart? Yes. Should there be a little bit of a tilt? Should they make sure they try to flow in one motion? Should their shooting hand be cocked backwards at the bottom as they're holding the ball? Should they make sure that they come up in one smooth motion and snap their shooting wrist at the end of their shot? Should their shooting elbow be straight? Should their guide hand be flat? Those are just several that you should focus on. And if this is relatively new for you and you don't feel like you're a shooting expert, there's tons of information available on YouTube. Some of it is very good, and there's always a little bit of stuff that you have to sift through. You know, it's like almost like spam email. But there's some really good information out there on YouTube that you should watch. But if this is relatively new for you and you want to make sure that your son or daughter develops into being a great shooter, then I would rewind that part and write down some of those notes of what we talked about with their feet, what we talked about with snapping their wrist, what we talked about with holding their follow through. I would write those details down because those are very important. So by removing the extra time in between the shot, that could be wasted in several ways. And the key reason that we did this was to make sure that they're not overthinking. Think about that for a second. What are some of the areas in sports where somebody can overthink? Before an important field goal, right before an important putt, any moment where you have time to let your brain wander and think. So in the game of basketball, it's common, just like somebody kicking an important field goal in football, where the other coach can call a timeout to try to ice them. That's a term that you hear a lot. You want to try to ice somebody. What does that mean? So you're talking about a professional athlete. We're talking about pros right now. You're talking about a professional athlete that's done this who knows how many hundreds of thousands of times. And you call a timeout, and what does it force them to do? To think about the gravity of the moment, to think about what it's going to feel like if they miss, to think about and think and think and think and think. And more thinking, overthinking can almost be paralyzing. It can mess you up. So you don't want your son or daughter to walk to the free throw line with way too much time in between, to overthink, to get in a habit of overanalyzing and thinking about all the different things that could go wrong. You want them to go up there almost like a machine and do their job. And nobody who's shot over 1,000 free throws ever in the history of the universe has ever made all 1,000 because of human error. But with proper practice, your percentages definitely go up. So by removing that extra time that could be wasted overthinking, you have to remember that the human mind is delicate. It's a very delicate thing. And you don't want to put players in a situation where they're walking up there and they're thinking about all the different things that could go wrong, just like we talked about, right? And they're thinking about the score, the time, their teammates, what's coming up next, what play, who are they guarding. There's so much to think about. You want them to get there like a machine and shoot, because it's very easy to lose focus in a highly competitive situation. So more time standing, dribbling, spinning the ball gives a player more time to think about the moment. And like we discussed, time, score, crowd, past results, past misses, the past. You don't want them thinking about those things. So this simple concept, the no dribble free throw, can easily be implemented into any training routine or anytime you go to the park. Shooting with a partner, sibling, parent, or even on the gun, it's easy to do. And by doing this, you get way more reps, you get way more quality reps, and then you get into the game having shot, let's say, 5 times more free throws than your peers in the same amount of time. So that helps you build your experience, that helps you build your confidence, and that helps you get into the game and feel very good about the chances of making that free throw. It's easy to take what you practice and do in games, but it's very difficult if you practice one way and try to do it differently in the game. It's easy to take what you practice and do it in games, but you have to practice that way because muscle memory is a very, very strong thing. Muscle memory is real. So when you do something a certain way over an extended period of time, you build habits to the point where you don't even have to think about it anymore. And that's where you want your son or daughter to be. You want them to be very comfortable. You want them to walk up to the free throw line, get the ball from the ref, and knock it down. So we talked about how some of the parents questioned it, but by the end of the academy season, the parents loved it because we explained it. We explained why we do it. And in the academy games, In those tournament style games with referees and crowds and scoreboards and all that stuff, in those games, there is a moment. So every free throw matters. For those kids who are building very valuable experience that they'll carry with them into their normal basketball environment, those free throws matter. There's pressure, there's stress, there's tension. And by shooting a certain way, we're systematically, intentionally removing extra time for them to overthink it. So the players that have done it over a period of years with us, in practice, in games, in between games, at home, they make it a part of their routine. They've consistently become the best free throw shooters on their team. So those parents, obviously by the end of it, once they understand it, are very thankful. And I'm hoping that you out there listening, that everybody listening will at least consider and contemplate helping your son or daughter also implement this routine. Because players adapt. And by not dribbling, we've helped them find a solution for even more success. So this is something that is relatively new, but I want to challenge you. I want to challenge you to notice and look around when you're watching a game. If you take your son or daughter to a game, if you're watching a college game, you're watching a high school game, you're watching a game on TV, try to notice and see if there's players out there that don't dribble before their free throw. And then think about why that might be valuable. And then think about the next time you go to the park, just as a pure exercise, just to mix it up, just to help them. Challenge your son or daughter and make a rule. Say, listen, right now for the next 10 minutes, start your watch. For the next 10 minutes, we're going to count and see how many free throws you make. Give them a number. I guarantee you that they'll get way more shots up properly with good form. They'll get way more shots up by removing any type of dribbling routine before that, which they can then carry with them into the game. So please think about it, consider it. I guarantee you it'll help them. Like I said in the beginning of this, it's a little bit harder when you're a little bit older, but that's the case for any of us. You know, the more time that goes by, the older we get, the harder it is to break habits. But if you're just getting started with your son or daughter and they're not yet in high school, I definitely recommend that you start this ASAP to help them along their path to being an amazing free throw shooter. Please comment below. Let us know your thoughts. And if your son or daughter already does this, let us know why. How did you come to this discovery? How did they decide to do this? Was it just something that kind of organically happened? Or did they watch a player that also did that? We hope this helps you. We'll have a lot more tips coming up over the next several podcasts, so stay tuned. Come get some.